Hey guys, and welcome to Ozzie Reviews, and welcome to this month's Q&A. Now we're a couple of days late with the October Q&A because we've had a lot of stuff going on, and at the end of October obviously we had the Queensland state election, so I was pretty busy and tied up with that, as most of you would know if you follow me on Facebook. So guys, I'll jump into this month's questions, but before I do, just a quick reminder, if you want to be a part of this Q&A series where I tailor answers directly to your questions, you must be a Patreon supporter of mine. So you can do that as little as $1 a month, and it's my way of helping you out and showing my appreciation for the help that you give me in return. So let's jump into this month's questions. Now, the first question I got here is from Gavin and multiple other people, and it's all along the same lines as my thoughts on One Nation political party in regards to their firearm policy. Now, I think Gavin's probably got the best question here that wraps up what everybody else has been asking. He says, Pauline said there is no way she wanted to change or loosen the NFA, or the National Firearms Agreement, or words to that effect. One Nation are a party that does what Pauline wants, so unless they go individual post-election, will One Nation be sticking to that statement and just looking at keeping what we have at best? There's no doubt for me that I want to change the laws back to pre-96, so who is the best party to vote for to achieve that in Queensland? Cheers, Gav. So this has been the question that's been along the lines of that, guys, because on election day I helped out One Nation hand out how to vote cards. So I want to explain a few things that really brought me to that. Number one is obviously we were trying to vote away from the major parties because they simply don't listen to firearms owners. Here in Queensland, all you need is the evidence from the lever action shotgun reclassification, which clearly showed there was only a handful of people who voted against that reclassification. One single LNP member, that was it, one. There was also one single independent. There was all the Qatar Party guys, and then there was one Nation party member who held a seat at that time in Queensland who voted against it. So that's the reason why I supported One Nation with regards to their firearm policy during this Queensland election. If you're in my electorate, for example, I had obviously the Greens, Labor, LNP. I didn't have anyone from Qatar Party, even though I helped them out last election in my area. But there was no one in this state election from the KAP, and there was a One Nation candidate who obviously I reviewed here on the channel. So if you've got a choice between the majors that you know are going to bring in more firearm restrictions, or you've got One Nation that say they don't want to make any changes, who are you going to vote for? Are you going to vote for the majors that are going to bring in more restrictions, guaranteed? Or are you going to vote for a party that says, okay, we don't really want to change anything with the NFA? Well, of course, I'm going to vote for the party that doesn't want to bring in any more restrictions, because I'm sick to death of each year going by more restrictions, without any incident whatsoever to justify it. So I'm pretty much had a gut full of that. And I couldn't believe, honestly guys, the stupidity of a lot of people who, were going off half-cocked. Oh, why would you support One Nation? They don't want to improve the gun laws. It's like, just stop and think just for a moment. Like, so what? I should just vote for the majors, should I? That I know want to change the gun laws for the worse. So just stop and think about that, guys. You've got to stick to a party, or at least help a party, who's not going to try to impose any more restrictions on us. The licensed shooting community has had enough, and it's time to actually do something about it. The sad thing about it, guys, is, not one person I knew, not one single person I knew handed out how to vote cards on election day, whether it be for the Qatar Party, One Nation, their local independent, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And you're going to have a lot of shooters when these next round of restrictions come here in Queensland whinging like crazy on Facebook. Well, as I posted about, when I took a picture of myself down there on election day, there's some of us that sit behind a keyboard on Facebook whinging and carrying on, and there's others that actually get out and try to take steps to improve the situation. I chose the latter. I wanted to go out and try to make some change happen. Unfortunately, One Nation wasn't successful in my area, but at least I tried. You know, it's a matter of actually getting out and doing something. So that brings me to my next point here. Now we're going to have, in my view, this is my prediction, okay? I'm saying it now, so you can refer back to this in time to come. I believe that they're going to revisit the ammunition restrictions that they couldn't get passed in 2018 here in Queensland. And what I mean by that is I believe that they're going to put a limitation on the amount of ammunition you can purchase. They're going to put a limitation on the amount of ammunition that you can store. And they'll also put limitations on the type of ammunition that you can buy. So in other words, if you don't have a firearm registered in that caliber, you won't be able to purchase ammunition for it. Now, a lot of people might say, well, really, what's the problem with that, Ozzie? You know, it's no big deal. Well, it kind of is a big deal when you've got, you know, weapons licensing who are so far behind in having up-to-date records of registration details. I mean, how many of us can honestly make a comment on this video and talk about when they've had a firearm inspection, how many of those details just simply aren't correct? So, you know, so if you've bought yourself a new 270, for example, right? And you want to go and obviously buy ammunition for it, but your registration details don't show that you've got that registered in your name. Well, how are you going to get around that? You see what I mean? Like there's going to be some issues there. There'll also be issues for people like myself, you know, because if I'm buying a firearm, and I buy a lot of firearms to this channel, I can assure you. So I'm getting multiple PTAs all the time, and the records are nowhere near up to date. You know, so, you know, I've had license renewals, and I look at the firearms list, and it's like got firearms that I've gotten rid of like 3 years ago and stuff like that. So, you know, there's going to be complications there as well. On top of it as well, guys, why bring in restrictions when there's no need to? There's been no incident, has there? I certainly haven't seen any in the news. So why does there have to be restrictions on licensed shooters here in Queensland if they're storing ammunition correctly under the explosives regulation, which it's governed by here in Queensland? What's the problem? Personally, my view is I don't see a problem. Why just create a restriction for the sake of it? So that's going to be my prediction there. Plus also we're going to have the gel blasters. They're going to be more and more classification towards firearms as time goes on. You watch, guaranteed. I can pretty much guarantee that. Then also we're going to have more of the cosmetic appearance restrictions. And it's just going to keep going on and on and on. But you know the sad thing, guys, is you've got, you know, and it makes me smile out of just sheer disbelief. You will still have guys, you know, even at the local gun ranges and so forth, that talk about their local Labor member who's just a really nice fella. But have a look back at the lever action shotgun reclassification. Pretty sure if that person was in power at the time, they would have voted in favour for it. Same with the other LNP members, except that one member there from Gympie. That was their only exception. So you're going to have shooters who are just tightening the noose around all of our necks just because someone's a nice guy, or, you know, on election day they had a sausage sizzle. They're really nice people. Yeah, but that doesn't stop them voting for more restrictions, does it? This is the problem. These people have no idea about the mechanics, how firearms work. Most of the politicians, you go and say to them, can you tell me the difference between category B and C firearms? And they just look at you like you've just asked them to pluck a chook. They just have no idea. Yet these people are voting on what's going to happen with your firearms in the future. So that's why I say, guys, and I stress, it's so important, you know, for you to vote wisely and vote for a party that doesn't want to, you know, restrict firearms any further. Now, the other thing that I had on election day that I thought I'd, you know, share with you, obviously I saw posts there of Labor Party members standing over that female candidate from One Nation up the coast there. Pretty disgraceful, really. I mean, number one, as a guy, who do you think you are standing over a woman, you know, for a start? And then on top of it, like, especially in those circumstances, I mean, you know, we live in a democracy here in Australia, and people should have the right to be able to express their political views without persecution. Now, On the booth that I was actually on, it was really interesting. I got there at 5 a.m. I was the first one there. Keen as mustard to get out there, put up the One Nation signs and, say hello to a few of the locals. What happened, there was an elderly guy from the Labor Party, and he came along and he's putting up his signs. And, he didn't have enough zippy ties. And I actually offered some of mine because I had some spare and helped him put up some signs. And you could see he was sort of taken back that little bit, and he just didn't expect that. So what happened was as obviously the morning went on, the LNP supporter turned up, and there was a couple of them. And then what had happened was there was a problem at the polling booth, and there was an issue with the printer printing out the ballot papers. So what happened was the LNP person that was initially there by themselves before anybody else turned up, they actually volunteered to go back and grab their printer and obviously help out the polling station there. So what happened was the person from the Labor Party who had turned up with this other elderly fellow, she'd actually turned around and said, "Oh, leave your cards here," to the LNP volunteer. I'll hand them out for you. And I can swear to God, I was standing there, guys, when you've got this lady from the Labor Party standing there greeting people as they're walking up the footpath and offering a Labor and an LNP how to vote card. So it was sort of contagious, just that goodwill. Then as the day progressed, obviously we had a fairly big storm, throughout the southeast Queensland region. And what happened was the LNP signs, now these are big signs, that had really bad photos of Pauline Hanson and Robbie Katter and, the ALP in general, and having a go at them, obviously just having a dig, as politicians do. And anyhow, the wind was so strong, it had ripped these signs and blown them pretty much off the fence. So, I'd gone up with the LNP guy, I'd mentioned to him, look, your signs are actually coming off the fence there. And I offered to help, and I also offered to, give him some zippy ties and that and secure him to the fence. And this was having a go at the party, being One Nation, that I was there to help represent. So, he was a bit taken back with that as well. But, what I'm getting at here is every single one of us, regardless of our political views, we're able to put that aside and just be friendly, have a chat, and not get personal. And we let the people decide what they wanted to, who they wanted to vote for. And that's how it was. As people walked up the footpath, we didn't go shoving papers in their face and all the rest of it. We just held them out and just offered it to them. If they didn't want to take it, that's fine. And in my view, that's how democracy and just common human decency should work. And it's a pity that those politicians at the top couldn't follow suit. Next question I got here is from Anthony. He says, "Hi Ozzie, I've really enjoyed the process of breaking in my 300 Win Mag and sighting it in. I'm happy I've got it where it needs to be, but what I'm finding is some shots hurt and others don't at all. My shoulder gets bruised some sessions, but not others. I've played around with different height rests, and it seems the lower rests are better. Have you heard of anything like this happening before?" But it's a little bit hard without actually having a look at, how you're shooting, Anthony. But the first thing that I'd be saying would be, are you holding the rifle correctly? And I don't mean in the meat to the side here of your shoulder. I'm talking about nicely tucked away in the groove there with a nice firm grip. Because to me, usually when you're lying like prone, for example, you do feel that recoil more than when you're upright, and you're simply, shooting standing up. So from what you're saying seems to be in the reverse of what I've experienced. However, another thing that I would probably suggest is, well, number one, is it all the same load? Are you using heavier loads, different brands of ammunition, or, what are you doing there? If it is exactly the same, but then some sessions you're pulling up sore, I would probably look at getting a decent recoil pad. Okay, now Limb Saver are a really good brand. I've got one on my Benelli shotgun, and it's just a brilliant recoil pad. So depending on what actual make and model your 300 Win Mag is, I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to find one. So mate, have a look at that. Other than that, all I can suggest is just make sure it's tucked in nicely. If it still hurts you and it annoys you, you can put a muzzle brake on, but I really am against muzzle brakes because they're just so damn loud. I prefer just to cop a bit of recoil there and not have it as, ear-piercingly deafening, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's my advice on it, but let me know how you go. Next question I got here is from Matt, and he says, "Hi Ozzie, hope you're well, mate. Just wondering what your suggestion would be for a 22LR that would be suitable for a child to start learning with. I'm looking for something that would be okay for that, but still of good quality if something like that exists." Honestly, mate, I've had the Ruger American for years now. I was just actually shooting it today before filming this video, and I just thought to myself, how good is this rifle? I've had it for so many years now. I bought it when we were on parity with the US dollar, so that's how long I've had it, and it's never missed a beat. Still shoots accurately enough, rugged, reliable, just a typical Ruger. So I would, highly recommend one of them, but get it in the compact model because obviously that shorter stock insert would be great for teaching a youngster, to shoot. Shorter barrel on it, 18 inches as opposed to 22 inches, so a little bit of a weight saving there as well. And then obviously as your child gets older, you can put a standard stock insert in the back of them, to increase their length of pull so they're quite comfortable when shooting as they get, obviously larger. So that would be my advice, mate. Honestly, for the price of them, I think they're about $700 now. They've certainly gone up with the weaker dollar, but I honestly can't fault them. I think they're just absolutely perfect, for a beginner. Now, next part of Matt's question here is wants to know my thoughts on a minimum age to start shooting. Obviously, it depends greatly on the child, but I'm pretty sure I was shooting from around 7. I think that the South Australian gun laws these days say 12. What's your thoughts? Okay, well, mate, I was 6 when I started shooting, so, obviously you've got to comply with the various state and territory laws, so if it's 12 in South Australia, well, that's what you've got to wait for. But, if it was up to me personally, I'd make it as young as possible because when is, it's like it's never too soon to start someone on firearm safety. That's where I'm going with this. If you've got a child there and they're responsible and you can teach them, proper firearm safety at like 7 and 8 and, teach them if they do see a firearm, don't just go up and touch it, don't point it at anyone, all that sort of thing. I think that's really important to, to teach a youngster. And I think, under the age of 12 would be fine to start, those sort of kids on. It worked with me, worked fine, no issues there whatsoever. Here in Queensland, it's 11, so, like I say, you just have to comply with the different states and territories, mate. But, if it was up to me, the younger the better. Next question I got here is from Dimitri, and he says, "Hi Ozzie, I just watched your video on the 223 caliber, and in it you mentioned that you can often find ammo for around 50 cents a round purchasing in bulk. Do you know of any stores in Brisbane or surrounds where the cost of round is this? The most cost effective I've been able to find is $770 for 1,000 rounds. Thanks." Well, mate, I'm talking about, obviously like PPU. So you can get that now, I think, in bulk for about $600 for 1,000 rounds. Also, too, I've seen at Cleavers when they have like, bulk specials on, like different 223 ammo, and it comes in at about $12 for a pack of 20, they just seem to have this mass run of it's cheap ammo, but good quality ammo. And, that's what I'm referring to there. Yes, I know prices go up, like Outback ammo was, 50 cents a round when I was getting the 55 grain Sierra Game Kings. I know they've gone up now, but still what I'm talking about is, the likes of PPU and some of those other special runs that you can get it for at that price. Next question I got here is from John. He says, "Hi Ozzie, what's your recommendation for a decent but value for money shotgun, which I'd use for clay shooting mainly, but I'm in Victoria, so I might use it for duck hunting very occasionally. Cheers, John." But if you haven't seen it, the Maruku MK70 Sporter under and over that I've reviewed there, probably about a year or so ago, is a fantastic shotgun. I've had that for many years. I actually purchased it originally for the old man, so he still uses it to this day, and I've used it, and it's just a fantastic shotgun. It has never ever missed a beat. Just a great quality shotgun, and honestly, I can't recommend them highly enough. You know, if you don't want to spend big dollars, but you want something that is still nice, good quality, definitely check it out, mate. I've done the full review, as I say, so you can see all my likes and everything about it in that video. Next question I got here is from Danny, and he says, "Hi Ozzie, I'm looking at getting into possibly a Remington 7615 for feral pest control, mainly pigs. What's your thoughts on the Remington 7615 for this purpose, or should I look at something else? Cheers, Danny." Well, mate, it's a good platform. I love them. I've had a couple of them now, and they shoot fantastically. Actually, it's a little bit of a celebration. It's a bit of a coincidence you asked this because, you know, a couple of years ago, I had my Remington 7615 video completely removed by YouTube. And there was really no explanation other than it was a breach of community standards. Now, I did appeal that. Nothing happened. You know, we even got a lot of guys off my channel to submit in appeals on my behalf. Nothing happened. And then I found another way to do an appeal. And the great news was about a week ago, I just got the tick of approval that it's been reinstated. So, you know, have a look at it. The Remington 7615 review that I've done, it's up there for everyone to see now on YouTube again. And, you know, it's been quite a popular video with well over 100,000 views. Next question I got here is from Bob, and he says, "Hi Ozzie, I really enjoyed the review you did on the Yamaha UTV. It made me laugh when Mrs. Ozzie walked along in slow motion with that hold my beer moment. Any chance of doing, say, a Polaris review? I'd really love to see you expand more in the UTV world." Well, Bob, I would too, mate. You know, the only thing is getting hold of them because obviously we're talking about, you know, quite an expensive unit here. It's not like a firearm where I can afford to just go out and drop, you know, $1,000 on it and just write it off and go, okay, everyone wants to see that. You know, we're talking about utility vehicles here that are like $20,000 to $25,000 each. So, yeah, I mean, look, if anyone knows anyone in Polaris and they'd like me to do a review, you know, of their equipment, yeah, sure, I'd absolutely love to. So, yeah, definitely not off the cards, mate, but just a little bit logistically harder because of the price point to be able to do them. All right, guys, that concludes this month's Q&A. Thanks very much for submitting those questions. And remember, if you want to submit the questions, all you got to do is be a supporter on Patreon, show me a little bit of support, and in return, I'll answer your questions personally and hopefully give you the right advice. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and we'll catch you on the next Q&A.